Maneva na sema PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osia dem yopo.
Well, interesting submissions, but there are many issues that I need to straighten once again. To begin with, citing Justice Shremsai's pronouncements and that of Domelovo do not in any way undermine the fight against corruption that we have waged. To begin with, if the Deputy Attorney General says, oh, the mere fact that you've acquired land at what is perceived to be a ridiculously low price does not in itself constitute a crime or an act of corruption. That is trite knowledge. Moro, it is trite knowledge. The mere act itself on the surface won't constitute a crime. But if it is investigated and found that the actors involved deliberately compromised their position and gave the land to you because of political connection, and that the land was valued at a certain price but was sold to you at a knockdown rate due to political consideration, that is where the crime will be. So that is why it requires investigation. So tomorrow, if tomorrow we woke up and learned that you bought some government property around Metro TV here for 10,000 Ghana cedis, that in itself doesn't mean that you've committed a crime. But if we find that the officer in charge knew that this land was $1 million, and because you are his friend or his crony, he gave it to you at 10,000, then there's an issue to investigate. So that the official who did that will be held liable for the action. That is essentially what the Deputy Attorney General says. And how does this detract from the fight against corruption? Again, I listened to the program on Joy News where Mr. Domelovo spoke. And in fact, the exact quotation has been published on Manjaro Online. So anybody interested can read. What he said was that from the very onset, everybody knew that the oral committee set up by President Mahama, which in any event was set up before President Mahama took office, and therefore could not have had any legal mandate anyway to do any prosecution or even investigation, was set up just to collect information from the people of Ghana or anybody who had it and process same for the use of the Attorney General once he is appointed. In fact, I put out that statement. Again, anybody who goes to my Facebook wall or Twitter page can download this statement and read it. It was very, very clear. In fact, the exact description I used was that it was a preparatory team. And to the extent that they didn't have any legal mandate, on what basis were they going to conduct investigations? So their mandate was very clear. Nobody who is being truthful could have been in doubt what the remit of their work was. It was said that if you, Moro, had evidence that Paul had engaged in any act of corruption, bring it. If you have what you believe to be evidence, add it. It will be sifted through, and then what is deemed to be workable will be then given to the Attorney General once he takes office. That is precisely what happens. So it is entirely possible that people will bring information that you can consider as garbage or rubbish. Yeah. And those people who worked in that committee were in no doubt that that could happen. It is a reason why after they submitted their report, the Attorney General gave it to accredited state agencies to conduct investigations into and find which ones merit further action. There has never been a period where anybody said that the over 2,000 complaints that they receive, all of them could be prosecuted. Nobody can think that way. They whittled it down to about 280 cases. Even then, there's no guarantee that all 280 cases will master scrutiny in court. So, for me, we are splitting hairs over nothing. We are wasting precious time on what is so obvious. But perhaps it is a tactic adopted by those who want to see the fight fail in order to obfuscate the issues and draw us into a discussion of tangential, insignificant matters when the real issues are pending. So Mr. Domelovo has not said anything that invalidates the work of the committee. Indeed, I heard one MP claim that the MPP has been vindicated. How does Mr. Domelovo's statements vindicate you? As we speak, there are several MPP officials who were prominent in the Akufo-Addo government who are standing trial on the basis of the work that Oral did, which has been further investigated to establish clearly the culpability or otherwise of those named in there. So how does that vindicate you? So I think that the MPP are in too much of a hurry to poo-poo what is happening. Of course, you can understand the political motive behind it. They want to douse public interest in this and create a situation where people begin to doubt the efficacy of what is happening. So that can be understood from a political context. But let nobody be in doubt about the seriousness that is being attached to this. You see, Moro, the last time I was here with Paul, I highlighted it. Look, there is no dispute that the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government supervised unprecedented levels of corruption. Sometimes it was palpable. It was clear that there was corruption going on. And you in the media, on a daily basis, bombarded us with exposés of corruption. At a point, we were just swarmed that one could not, you had hardly finished discussing one corruption allegation before another one is tossed in. And so you could even not tell which one to focus on because there were so many. Because of that, the people of Ghana legitimately demanded action from President Akufo-Addo, who was unwilling to take such action. You could see clear wrongdoing that was not punished. Indeed, in many instances, he himself jumped to the defense of the persons who had been accused of corruption. And so it was clear that nothing was going to be done about that unless and until that government was booted out. Now, any responsible party or candidates who wanted to lead this country needed to respond to that public demand. Because Moro, this is a country where people have actually been shot, tied to the stakes and shot because of corruption. And it was supported. We are talking about the demise of Mrs. Rollins. In her heydays, there were demands for blood, for persons who had engaged in acts that pale into insignificance when compared to what has happened under the MPP. So the Ghanaian people have always demanded action about corruption. He spoke about how corruption was a major issue in the 2000 elections. That,
2016.
And of course, in every election. Of course, in every election. And so was it in 2020, so was it in 2024. So was it under President Kufuor in 2008. So was it in 2004 when the Malamisa kickback case emerged. You remember that? President Kufuor's Wawa speech, he came under a barrage of criticism for appearing to endorse corruption when he justified the incidence of corruption in his government. So corruption has always been an issue. But have we as a people, has various governments responded to it in a manner that is satisfactory to the people of Ghana? Up until 2024, the people of Ghana thought no. So anybody who wanted to lead this country needed to make a firm commitment to addressing that particular concern. Then came in oral. Operation Recover All Root. And President Mama says, look, I have heard the cries of Ghanaians. I, as president, will take steps to ensure that we address this canker of corruption in a manner that is comprehensive, in a manner that makes it a high-risk activity for persons wanting to get into it. So what did he do? It was in a manifesto, captured in there. When he was elected, before he could take over as president formally, he put in place a mechanism to begin work on addressing the issue of corruption under the previous government. So then he set up the oral committee to receive information about acts of corruption and process that information. So it was raw material. Nobody could take that to court to seek conviction unless and until subsequent work had been done to establish firmly whether or not the allegations are true and whether there's basis, there's evidence to support him. That is what happened. When he took over, indeed a ceremony was held where the report of oral was then handed over to the Attorney General. He gave it to the NIB, the police CID, sometimes the National Signals Bureau is involved, sometimes the National Security itself is involved, and the Attorney General's office itself, and then Yoko, to look into these matters. And Moro, they won't tell, I'm sure Paul knows because he has his ears to the ground. Dozens, scores of MPP officials have been invited for questioning. On a daily basis, I get briefings. So they will give you a grade showing who has been called, who has been cautioned, who has been billed. It is not all of them that gain media attention. Perhaps because of the personalities involved. They are not necessarily people who are in the front burner of our politics. So you may not know. But I can tell you, over 80 different people have been interviewed. Some of them have been given bail quietly. Some of them have people standing surety for them. Yes. 80. And more. And it is something that continues to happen.
Wow.
And let me tell you, all the 280 cases that Ora presented are being looked into. All of them, bar none. So that has been done. There are some that naturally, because of the actors involved, and their own attempts to seek support from their base, it gets to the front burner. Because when they are invited or arrested, they mobilize people to come and make noise to demand their release and all. So that one naturally is covered by the media. And then sometimes you in the media get wind of it, and so you blow it up, which is okay. But I can assure you that that is happening. Subsequent to this, the Attorney General then carries out detailed scrutiny of the facts of each case and makes a decision as to whether or not it should go to court. That is standard practice. That is what it is. Not everything that comes before the Attorney General or prosecutorial bodies that they take to court, because they in fact, there may yet be instances where there is evidence of wrongdoing, but perhaps the weight of the evidence may be insufficient, because in criminal cases you have to meet a certain high threshold that it must be beyond reasonable doubt. So there are instances where you see that yes, there are questions to be answered. The questions have not been satisfactorily answered. But if you take it to court, you may not get the evidence that is required to secure conviction. So you leave it at that until a time where you get additional evidence. But in many instances, there is hardcore, irrefutable evidence. But this Attorney General is a well-trained, well-heeled, experienced legal practitioner. He himself has represented many people in criminal cases. So he is fully aware of the threshold that must be met and the nuances that go into securing conviction. So because of that, he is doing a thorough job. He is going through the files, the dockets with a fine comb. Indeed, at the briefing, he gave you a list of cases that he has finished investigations on. Skytrain, mathematical sets, and what have you. He gave a list. It is there. You understand me? But you see, the Attorney General, like myself, is a public official. And therefore, his work is also subject to scrutiny, especially in circumstances where certain quarters of Ghanaian society have sought to criticize him for what they believe to be a slow-paced approach to implementing oral. So it is necessary for him to come out to assure the public, give information about the work he is doing, and also account for the reason why. For instance, he will call Paul, question him, and take him to court. You see, Paul is a citizen of the country. His rights must be protected like mine and yours. So the moment the Attorney General decides that he will alter Paul's rights or act in ways that limit Paul's rights because he is taking him to court, ostensibly because Paul has committed some offense or the other, he is accountable for that decision. And therefore, the people of Ghana must hear why he is taking such a step. Look, and Paul again is an exposed person. He's traveled the world over. So he knows that in the most liberal democracies in this world, including the United States of America, prosecutors on a daily basis engage the media and put out details of why they are taking some action against people. Indeed, the most recent one that we can cite in terms of its high profile is President Trump himself. He was a former president of the United States. Yet, a prosecutor in New York staged a press conference, announced that he had been indicted. He was taking him to court on the basis of ABCD. Indeed, as far back as 1994, when the O.J. Simpson case broke out, prosecutors faced the public on a daily basis to account for the reason why they were taking some steps. So it is not new, it is not unheard of for an Attorney General or a prosecutor to mount a podium and disclose details of why he is taking people to court. The people of Ghana deserve that. There's nothing wrong with it. Again, Moro, we behave as though court processes in Ghana are secret. Indeed, because of the Ofosu case, I went to court many times. Everything that is taken to court is actually public information. It just may be that you in the media are not interested, and so you don't highlight some of them. But in the more high-profile ones, you go to court, and in fact, you report. In some instances, the proceedings are telecast live. So every evidence, every accusation, every detail of the case is in the public domain. Indeed, you can apply to the court for proceedings to be given to you. And if the court reviews it and finds that there is basis for your demand, they will give it to you, which you will then publish. The statements of offense, they are published. Why? Godfrey Dami, when he was Attorney General, whenever he charged somebody in court, the charge sheet was made public. He published it. And the charge sheet is no different from what the Attorney General has spoken about in his media encounters. So why are we behaving that as if the Attorney General has done anything that is untoward? As if he's done something that we've not heard before? Why? In the Ofosu case, at a certain point, the judge ordered that the proceedings be telecast live because he wanted transparency. And they were telecast live. People watched it. The 2012 election petition, the cameras were taken into the courts. In the 2021 too, the cameras were taken to the courts. So we heard and saw everything that was discussed. So why are we behaving as though the Attorney General coming to tell us what he is taking to court? which will become public information anyway, is such a travesty of justice. Again, the Attorney General cannot convict anybody. If the Attorney General says, Moro, you have stolen 2,000 Ghana cedis, and now when you stole the money, you took it to Metro TV Rural Bank to save in your account. And that on a particular day, you went to take that money to go and purchase a car. That in itself does not convict you. It is the reason why after the Attorney General's press conference, Hanan is not in prison. Hanan will have his day. The Attorney General said today, Friday, 24th October, 2025, I'm going to charge Hanan, his wife, and 2 others for the offenses that I have stated. He will be given his day in court. Hanan will be given every opportunity to present evidence to show that what the Attorney General is saying has no merit, and therefore the court should throw it out. That is what has happened in every case that has been taken to court. So I'm not sure why people think that if the Attorney General comes out to brief the public, he has committed an offense. Justice Louise Bandes said it. That sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Right.
If the Attorney General, a public official, paid with taxes that you and I pay, is doing his work, and he feels that he's got to a point where he needs to keep the public informed, there's nothing wrong with it. The Ghana Accountability Series has been set up for all government officials who have anything to say about their work, to the extent that it is in the public interest, can come and do so. The Attorney General is a public official, mind you. Yes, in fact, in his case, his role is specifically defined in the Constitution. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, he is perhaps the only official whose job description is captured clearly in the Constitution. And often he is the only official whose job description is tied to his professional training. So it is a very important office. And I see no reason why the Attorney General cannot brief the people. But you see, it is understandable why the MPP will rail against this, and the likes of people who belong to the MPP will rail against this. Because somehow they believe that these disclosures tend to vindicate the concerns that the people of Ghana had, for which reason they booted them out of office. They are not happy that the people of Ghana are getting to know the kind of wrongdoings that happened under them. Because see, some of the issues are mind-boggling, and you wonder what exactly it was that President Akufo-Addo was doing as president. You see, of the issues at hand are quite mind-boggling.
Okay.
And one is inclined to believe that there was some governmental conspiracy behind it. Because if you look at the National Service case, of course, admittedly, it is not the first time that we've heard of ghost names in National Service. It's a long-standing phenomenon. But the amounts involved, for instance, when President Obama was president previously, he got wind of this, and he asked the BNI to look into the matter. So they went into it and found out about 54 million or so was involved. And we all know the swift action he took to deal with the persons involved. Over 100 district directors were sacked and put before court. And the Director General at the time was also put before court. But initially, the Attorney General had thought that up to about 548 million Ghana cedis was involved in this particular National Service matter. Only for the Auditor General to go into the matter to audit and find that the amounts ran into about 2.2 billion Ghana cedis. And indeed, on Monday, when the President met the Chief Justice, the Auditor General, the Auditor General had cause to brief the President on some of the findings. They were mind-boggling. No, if the amount involved was, say, 5 million, 10 million, you could say that, oh, this is one or two people engaged in some illicit activity under the cover of darkness. But it is inconceivable that up to 2.2 billion Ghana cedis of government money will be siphoned outside of the system that is created to pay National Service persons without anybody higher up the chain getting wind of this. Because if you look at the process of payment, the claims have to go to the Finance Ministry for approval. And therefore, when you see a spike in the numbers overnight, over a considerable period of time, it certainly should trigger some concern. So you wonder what checks and mechanisms were in place to monitor some of these activities so that you do not spot up to 2.2 billion Ghana cedis of public funds that we hardly have, going into private pockets. And you wonder whether the people who have now been arrested and are being arraigned before court are the only people involved in this kind of scheme. It is something that we need to look into. If you look at the Hanan case, for instance, how do you take money belonging to the organization and pay directly into your account? It makes no sense. How is it that the systems that are put in place, the internal controls, the internal audit process and all of that, miss this and allow this to continue over an extended period of time? So it shows that either the government itself was complicit and that this was a governmental conspiracy, or people were exceptionally incompetent as much to see what is happening. But you see, going forward, even as we deal with these cases, we need to draw lessons so that adequate checks are put in place. So what happens is that now, before you get any form of public funds released to pay for anything, we have what we call commencement certificates. It goes to the finance ministry, it goes to the finance minister, who goes through it with a fine comb. And there are many instances where he has disallowed these payments because he is not satisfied about the narration that accompany the request for the payments. That is a way that you, because you see, most of the corruption that we have is procurement driven. In other words, people want to buy things, and it is through the process of buying things that things are either inflated so that something can be creamed off the top, or dubious means are used to ensure that the money lands into the pockets of people who themselves are involved in the transaction. The way to cure it is to have a system that oversees what is happening. And so that is happening. That is why you find that there are people who complain, that these days the finance minister is not releasing money, we are not buying this, we are not buying that. It is all because a system has been put in place to check it. When you do that, you limit. It is entirely possible that 1 or 2 instances may occur where people slip through, but you will minimize it to the barest minimum, and then you are able to deal with the instances that occur. It does appear that it was free for all under President Akufo-Addo, and that nobody bothered to check what was happening, because the extent of the corruption that we've discovered is mind-boggling. Moro, there's even another one. You know, when we came into power, we were given a bill of about 170 billion Ghana cedis as arrears that government of Ghana owed to various contractors and suppliers and other service providers. So you know, the minister announced that an audit was being carried out to ascertain the veracity of these claims. Look, the report that has emerged out of that is shocking. And I'm sure the Minister of Finance will have opportunity in the coming weeks to disclose the details of this audit. So you find that monies were just going down the drain in this country, and that people were putting public funds in their pockets for no work done. And yet we had a government that had a duty to protect this public purse. President Akufo-Addo was very clear during his inauguration in 2017 that he will protect the public purse. But it appears that he did the exact opposite. He opened the public purse up for people to abuse. Okay. And that is how come we have some of these instances. So let it be clear that oral has come to stay. The president is committed to it. It will be carried out to the letter. And as the Attorney General himself said, no amount of interference from any quarter will stop what has to be done. The president is the boss, as pointed out. And in the meeting with the media, he said it, that he is the one who the buck stops with. It is not unusual in our setting here to have influential persons attempting to intercede on behalf of people who get into trouble. So that in itself is not surprising. I don't think that is something that will end today or tomorrow. But the most important thing is that those who have responsibility to act anyway, to the extent that they are convinced that there's a basis to take the actions that they are taking. So I think that the press briefings are not problematic. Okay. It is only part of the way that we open up government for scrutiny. It enhances accountability. It enhances transparency. And merely having the Attorney General briefing the public on what he's doing does not convict anybody. The test is in courts, and everybody who is so accused has all the opportunity in the world to state his or her side of the story and convince the judge that the Attorney General is wrong and that there's no basis to take any further action against them. Yes. So let me comment on the OSP. Yes, with the OSP matter. Instructively, within minutes, I think 5 minutes or so of the end of the Attorney General's press conference, I saw Hanan issue a statement flatly denying what the Attorney General had said, and he's entitled to do so. He's entitled to do so. Indeed, in the political space, we are accused of all manner of things. I mean, I woke up one day and every people had always splashed all over social media that I had bought 2 houses because Mr. Rollins had said so. They said I had collected some money. Didn't mention your name. Yeah, but then people have attributed it to me. Oh, that's political mischief. They said that. Why didn't they attribute it to Stan? Absolutely. To Stan or to another person? They said that political mischief. I had collected some money to give to Charlotte. I said these things are said all the time. I issued statements debunking same, and I left with a clean conscience because I knew that it was completely false. You understand me? So that things will be said about you as a political actor is not unusual. But if the Attorney General says that I am the attorney, and mind you, prosecutions cost money. He has to put together a docket. Sometimes he has to hire special investigators, hire special auditors, hire experts to proffer an opinion on the facts that he has found. So it costs money. It is the public purse that will be opened up for that to be done. The Attorney General is an official. So once in a while we are there, we hear that the Attorney General has caused the arrest of Paul. Often when that happens, the reasons for doing so are not stated. So Paul is held in police custody or CID custody or BNI custody, or these days they are called NIB custody for some time. Party people swarm the place to protest and demand Paul's release. Then the BNI may issue a terse statement that they are holding Paul in connection with an investigation they are doing. Nothing is said. People can accuse the government of a politically motivated witch hunt against Paul because he is a vociferous critic of government. They can say that because Paul has a disagreement with a particular powerful person in government, they are teaching him where power lies and all that. Then the Attorney General takes the case over and says that I am going to court. That process somehow limits Paul's freedoms as a citizen, because rather than living his normal life, he has to go to court every time that the case is called. Sometimes, even in the course of the trial, fresh charges can be slapped on him, he can be rearrested and all of that. The Attorney General owes an explanation to the people on how he is using the mandate and how that mandate is being executed and why it is even necessary to use that mandate in the first place. So and especially in circumstances where there is legitimate public interest in oral, every now and then you hear public criticism. In fact, both within actors of the National Democratic Congress and out actors within, MP people go at the Attorney General, accuse him of a lackadaisical attitude. They say that oral is dead. And when Mr. Dumelovo made his comments a few days ago, the MPP jumped on it. I've told you about an MP, I think the MP from Menchia South, who has claimed that he has vindicated the MPP. So there's genuine public interest in how oral is being implemented. And oral was a campaign promise. This is a specific item based on which a section of the electorate voted for President Mahama. They expect outcomes. There's something called process communication. Between the time that you start something and the time that you finish, it's a certain period. In between that period, if you don't engage the public and communicate, they may think that you are actually not doing it. So if President Mahama has stood on a platform and promised that he will look into cases of corruption, where it is necessary to do retrievals, he will do so, and where it is necessary to prosecute, he will ensure that that is done. If word does not go out to the public that that is being done, the public may be justified in thinking that it has not been done. So it is part of the things that government is doing. For instance, when there is performance on the economy, the finance minister holds regular briefings. Indeed, in November this year, at a certain date, or on a certain date, he will go to Parliament to present the 2026 budget. He will give an account of the implementation of the 2025 budget and what we should look out for. The health minister, all things being equal, will be on the government accountability series on Monday to speak to some developments in the health sector. The fisheries minister has been there. The late defense minister, Dr. Manubuane, was there. Manubuane was there. Honorable Muntaka kick-started the process when he briefed the public. So why is the Attorney General unable to do the same things that all public officials do, accounting for what he is doing? And I have told you also that it is not novel. We say that this undermines democracy and that it affects the liberties of individuals concerned. But in the most liberal democracies, where even the rights of animals are upheld, I mean, there was an instance of a footballer, Zuma, he used to play for West Ham, who was videoed kicking his cat. Because of that, the supporters of West Ham demanded his immediate dismissal from the team.
Yeah.
I think that he was even fined by a court,
yes, he was,
for behaving that way.
Yes, he was.
So this is a society where even the rights of animals are preserved, let alone human beings, where the rights of human beings are taken very seriously.
Okay.
But even in those societies, the president of the country, when he is under investigation, becomes the subject of commentary by those doing the investigation.
Okay.
When a decision is made to prosecute, they account for why they must go. Why? O.J. Simpson, perhaps the most famous case. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, and Paul can correct me because he's been around longer, it was the first time that cameras were allowed into a court.
Okay.
The proceedings were aired every single day of the trial.
Okay.
The prosecutors publicly in front of the media stated what evidence they are relying on. In the end, O.J. Simpson was acquitted. So the mere fact that the Attorney General publicly says that you have done ABC does not mean that if he goes to court, necessarily the court will acquit you because you will have opportunity to challenge the Attorney General's claims.
Okay.
And indeed, in the Kwabena Adubuahin case, the moment the Attorney General finished the briefing, Atachia issued a statement on behalf of his client, denying all the claims against him. Hanan did same. All those who have been accused have done same. But I don't think that we can say that there's anything wrong with the Attorney General telling us what he will say in court. And let me reiterate, court proceedings are not secret. In fact, except in exceptional circumstances where the judge can cite national security considerations or some other important consideration, all proceedings are open to the public. Tomorrow, you can walk into a court in Ghana on Monday and observe proceedings, whether you have an interest in it or not. So it is not something that is hidden. And every now and then, when major developments happen in court, it is always on the media. Because, in fact, Metro, you have a court correspondent, don't you?
Right, we do.
Why do you have that correspondent? So that he will bring to you what is happening in the courts.
Right.
So I don't think that the Attorney General has done anything wrong. It is something that will continue.
Okay.
It is in the public interest that these things are done.
Okay.
But the ultimate test is in the court. Nobody is convicted because the Attorney General says he has committed a crime.
All right. So let me
And then the OSP matter. If I may, yes.
I'll come to OSP. I'll come to OSP. So let me read 4 other messages, and then we can talk about OSP.
And let me be clear here. As someone who speaks for the president, often I'm constrained.
Okay.
Because then my views could be misinterpreted to mean.
You know when I was coming to, I thought
exactly, my views could be
Before they say President Mahama
misinterpreted to mean that President Mahama has taken a position or the government has taken a position. So let me be clear that these are my personal views because the president has not spoken to me on what he makes of the existence of the OSP's office or the OSP, I beg your pardon, or his actions in relation to Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. So it is important that I issue that disclaimer.
Okay.
Moro, my position on the OSP, its existence and its work have been consistent. In fact, if you check the tapes of my appearances on these programs, when Randy Abe used to rule the roost here, my postings on social media and all that, I have always doubted the functional necessity of the office of the special prosecutor because I don't see what they do that is exceptionally different from what all the other anti-corruption bodies do. And I also think that the thinking that went into the OSP and the setting up of that office was a bit partisan, even though the texter disagrees. I suspect, and it panned out.
She's actually a staff of OSP.
Well, not a problem. Not a problem. Of course, you can expect her to mount a robust defense, and she's entitled to do so. The OSP has a right to fend off public criticism and set the record straight if he believes that he's being misrepresented. But I was of the view from the very day that President Akufo-Addo broached the idea of the OSP that this thing was not going to work. Because it was obvious from the very onset that President Akufo-Addo simply wanted to tap into the angst of Mr. NanaAddo against the NDC to deal with political opponents. And it played out clearly. Because in the run-up to the 2016 elections, Mr. NanaAddo had fought the NDC on various matters. He was dissatisfied about perceived mistreatment about the NDC. So he went to town on a number of things. And President Akufo-Addo, as a skilled political operator, wanted to tap into this to deal with his political opponents. So the OSP was not really set up properly. In fact, Mr. NanaAddo, in no time, began to complain about the lack of resources and how spokes were being put in his wheels and what have you. So it was obvious that the intent was not properly couched and the intent was not as noble as we thought it should be. So very soon they ran into difficulties. Somehow, Mr. NanaAddo turned his guns on the very administration that appointed him. So somehow he was kicked out. Indeed, I remember his rambling resignation letter in which he accused President Akufo-Addo of being the mother serpent of corruption and all manner of accusations that he leveled against President Akufo-Addo and his government. When he did his opinion on the SML deal, I believe. Yeah, he said some pretty damning things about the government of the day. So it began to fall apart at the time. Somehow he left office under a haze, under a cloud that has yet not been fully explained. Then came in Mr. Kwakye Jabin. No sooner had his name emerged than reports surfaced that he was essentially a protege of Gabi Ochedaku, who was trying to foist him on the OSP as it were to guard the post and ensure that nothing meaningful is done in the cases of corruption. That has not been helped by the fact that the OSP has little to show for the 5 or 6 years that it's been around in terms of convictions and solid outcomes that you can put a finger on and use it as justification for the existence of the office. Because mind you, they get quite a lot of funding. I believe that they perhaps even get more funding than the Attorney General Office itself. There have also been complaints about how the OSP himself has carried himself. There have been complaints about the airs around him, the sort of vehicles that he uses, the way that he moves in town, the behavior of operatives around him. And these concerns have been raised. You understand me? So it has fed into a certain perception that this is perhaps a creation that was not needed in the first place, and that it has become an inconvenience more than a necessary evil to address the specter of corruption. And it must be what? You see, public perception is extremely important. You find that in recent times too, several people have criticized the OSP for delivering very little as compared to the resources that he has received. And then some too have questioned his posturing on some of the issues that have come to the fore. Some have even questioned why he publishes mugshots of suspects who have been arrested or detained for any number of offenses. So there are significant issues that must be addressed. Okay. There's also a clear conflict between his office and the Attorney General, because sometimes even in the selection of cases as to which matters must be handled by the OSP and which ones must be handled by the Attorney General, it's murky. Look, the Attorney General has a record of, and I'm talking about Attorney Generals in both parties, they have a record of more convictions than the OSP has ever done. Yeah. There were convictions under all the governments that we've seen. The OSP is here to provide evidence of a significant conviction. I saw the conviction of somebody who was fined some amount of money or something like that. Very insignificant development. So people are beginning to question its function, necessity, and its relevance. Now, in respect of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, there's a certain feeling that he is stalling. And that there are even people who suspect that his whole entry into that fray was to actually protect Mr. Ofori-Atta, pretend to be doing something, stall the process, and prevent other institutions from laying hands on Mr. Ofori-Atta. Because once the OSP is seized with the matter, it makes it difficult to go after him, at least on the same matter that the OSP is investigating, because then the issue of double jeopardy may arise. There are people who hold that notion. And it has not been helped by revelations from the Attorney General's office that the sort of cooperation that they expect from the OSP has not come to the fore. Indeed, the Deputy Attorney General had cause to recount that. The Attorney General himself also publicly expressed dissatisfaction about the level of cooperation that they are receiving from the OSP. So it creates a difficulty. It creates serious credibility problems for the OSP. Okay. As to whether or not that office should be scrapped, people have stated their views. But I think that some way, somehow, some conclusion has to be drawn on this particular matter. Because we can't have an organization that is proving to be counterproductive. Truly speaking, what is it that the OSP is doing that the Attorney General cannot do? In fact, under President Mahama, I spoke about what he did in the National Service case. President Mahama appointed the then Director General. The name, unfortunately, has escaped me. And appointed a number of district directors for the NSS. About 100 of them were put before court. In fact, the most famous instance is Mr. Abu Gapele. Paul mentioned the issue of Malamisa. But Malamisa was essentially a PNC person who was loaned to the NPP. But if you want an instance of a president who has prosecuted one of his own, and if you know the relationship between Mr. Abu Gapele and President Mahama, you would appreciate the difficulty inherent in prosecuting somebody like that. But President Mahama put him before court. Of course, he could not finish the prosecution before he left office because he was voted out of office. The NPP continued it and secured conviction. But President Mahama is the one who started the case of Victoria Hammer. President Mahama fired him over what many people believe to be a flimsy premise, for saying essentially he was engaged in gossip with a colleague. That's all that it was. He hadn't stolen anything. He had not actually declared an intention to steal anything. He only said that if he doesn't have $1 million in his account, he will not engage a woman who he believes to be ahead of her. She believes to be ahead of her in politics. That's what Victoria Hammer said. And within 24 hours of that development, she was fired from office. So it is possible for a president to take stern action. Indeed, there are two notable personalities in the NDC, people in the top hierarchy of the NDC, who are under investigation for alleged involvement in illegal mining. Okay. And this is under an NDC president. So I don't believe that a president is immobilized from taking action against persons belonging to his party or government necessarily. I think that it is a matter of political. You see, the ultimate check on all of this is the Ghanaian public. Okay. Ultimately, you will render accounts. If they perceive that you are shielding political cronies and members of your government, they will take action against you as they did against President Akufo-Addo.
Okay.
But is the cure to that the OSP?
Right.
I am doubtful at this moment because of the outcomes that we've achieved.
Management was
First of all,
if you're not clearly monitoring what's happening within the
first of all, there's no contest in the NDC for flag leadership. So the situation, that question does not even begin to arise. Number two, the NDC has done this over and over and over. In fact, we've had Mrs. Rollins, who was a very powerful woman in the NDC, challenge an incumbent president, and we scaled it. So it is not a problem at all. When the time comes, we will maneuver it successfully. We will come up with a very viable candidate who will continue with the legacy of President Mahama. But regarding the MPP, because they are the ones who are holding a contest now, for me, I think that they've misdiagnosed their problem. The decision to hold this contest so early points to a misdiagnosis of why they lost. Somehow they believe that it was internal divisions that led them to opposition. That is not the case. More, I've told you here that the people of Ghana have shown in the last 8 elections or so that it is their welfare, how they feel about their welfare, that motivates them to go for one party or the other. Look, in 2014, the MPP was in complete disarray. By the time they went for the elections, they had slaughtered a party chairman in the Upper East also, Alhaji Chairman Adams. Acid was poured on him, he died. They had staged brawls in their party headquarters. Haji Afati and Co. had charged on opponents of Akufo-Addo within the party and harassed them. We saw the killings in Asawase. I think 2 people also died from clashes within the MPP. Yet they won the elections by close to 1 million votes in 2016. What does that tell you about the people of Ghana? They are unconcerned about happenings within parties. What they care about is what they believe the government of the day has done or not done. So if you take that into consideration, you see that all of this hoopla is much ado about nothing. Look, it is obvious that having been the immediate past candidate of the MPP, Dr. Bawumia goes into that primaries with an edge. Except that perhaps he may have a bit more challenge this time than he did when the whole establishment was behind him. Indeed, there are credible reports that President Akufo-Addo himself has now distanced himself from Dr. Bawumia and is backed by the champion. This is an open secret. Everybody knows it because you see that key operatives within the Akufo-Addo government and the MPP machinery are supporting Brianna Champon. It is also obvious that now Kennedy Japan does not have to deal with the system. So there's a bit more wind in his sail at this particular moment. And he's mounting a credible challenge. But despite that, I think that Dr. Bawumia, having contested once and having been marketed before, stands a chance. Also, there's a certain natural sympathy that he will get within the MPP, having lost the elections. It has happened in all political parties. So I will not be surprised if he won. As to whether or not he will win by a wider margin this time than before remains to be seen. MPs rallying support, for me, it is inconsequential. The average MP would want to play safe. They wouldn't want to rock the boat because there are consequences for their own elections internally. And I must indicate, having participated at the constituency level in terms of electioneering and mobilization, that constituency-based elections, primaries for MPs or parliamentary candidates, are more divisive than presidential primaries. Because what happens is that the people who are within the branches, or even like the polling stations, as the MPP calls them, are far removed from those at the top who are battling it out. So they don't really have personal relationships. So they may listen to an influential person and vote one way or the other, or based on their own views about the people that they know from a distance. They may take certain decisions. But when it comes to internal primaries, what happens is that there are closer relationships. And so the schisms are deeper. The divisions are deeper. And that is even more likely to affect the party's prospects than the primaries upstairs, at the top of the party. I cannot place a finger on any instance where legitimate division at the top of a party affected its outcomes in elections. And 2016 is a typical example. In fact, I don't know of any party that went into the 2016 that has gone into elections that was as divided as the MPP was in 2016. Yet they put up a stellar performance, swept parliament, and won by almost 1 million votes. So it tells you that the MPP has misdiagnosed their problem. They don't know where their problem is. In fact, the one who is likely to win, Bawumia, will also be their weakest link in the 2028 elections. For as long as this economy does better than what they left, Dr. Bawumia will struggle to convince the people of Ghana that he has what it takes to run this country. You see, he himself is a bundle of contradictions. In one breath, he says he was the be-all and end-all of all MPP policies. Sometimes he takes credit for even things that predict him, like interoperability and what have you. Yet, in another breath, he says that he had no role to play in the MPP and that the economic mess was not his doing. Meanwhile, we all know that as far back as 2008, when he was first tapped to be President Akufo-Addo's running mate, when he didn't even have an MPP membership card, which led to strong protests from Kennedy Upon, if you read Arthur Kennedy's book. It is the economy that has been cited for the reason why he was tapped to partner President Akufo-Addo. Maybe in 2008 it was a bit less pronounced. But in 2012, he started holding public lectures to demonstrate his capacity in economic governance. Indeed, in 2016, President Akufo-Addo was clear in his statements that he had gone for Dr. Bawumia because of his economic prowess and that he was going to hand over the management of the economy to him. When they came to power, he sought to take credit for every gain that was made in the economy. Yet, the moment the economy turned south, he tried to distance himself. So, it raised serious credibility problems for him in the eyes of the Ghanaian electorate. For as long as he remains active in politics, he will always be associated with the economic downturn that proved disastrous for the average Ghanaian. He has not been able to overcome that. So no amount of maneuvering, it doesn't matter how he wins in the MPP. People will always compare his performance to what is happening today. And you see, voters are rational decision makers. The average voter, to the extent that they are of sound mind and of the right age, is rational in his decision making. When he goes to vote, if the conditions under which he lives presently are better than what existed under a previous government that he has voted at, he is most unlikely to go back. So that is Dr. Bawumia's conundrum. If you look at the economic performance today, it is much better than what he left. So exactly what, indeed I've seen him say, for instance, that he will deliver world-class governance. Meanwhile, you left power barely 10 months ago. Where was that world-class governance? People can say that it is the worst period that this country has had to go through under your stewardship of the economy.
But he was not the president.
Sure, he was not. So he was not the president when he claimed that those 33 policies that were implemented were his brainchild. Today he claims that he was the brain behind gold for oil. Despite gold for oil, our economy collapsed. Our currency collapsed. It moved from 6 cedis to 17 cedis. When he was leaving power, the economy was around the cedi was around 17 cedis to $1. He was not the president, and yet he said that he introduced gold for oil. He was not the president, but he says that he introduced interoperability. He wasn't the president, but he says he introduced that thing that they used to transport some blood to be, what is it called? What do you call it? The drone service. He was not president, was he? He wasn't president, but he says he introduced,
isn't it? The zip line.
Zip line, yes. He said he was not president, but he says he introduced it.
So those were the things he could do.
So, but what is the effect, the totality of what he did? Hold on. He says that he was the brain behind gold for oil.
Yes.
Not so.
Yes.
He was the brain behind the accumulation of gold by the central bank.
Yes.
So they had been accumulating gold since 2022 or so. And yet, the purpose for the accumulation, which was to bolster the currency, was not realized. The currency performed at its worst level when he was doing that. What is the outcome of what he did? So that contradiction, and it appears that he still continues to drive that mantra, is going to create a permanent credibility crisis for him. People, you see, the more he tries to run away from the economic hardships that he created, the more people associate him with it. So his difficulty really is not going to be in the MPP. In fact, this week, contrary to Paul's claim that there has been some toning down in the vitriol, it has not been the case. MPP people, indeed Brother Champo, has publicly accused Bawumia of destroying the currency. And his supporters have told the same lie. They have gone to town accusing him of, and if they were NDC people, you could say that we were engaged in the usual politics. But these are MPP people. Many of them are supporters of Akufo-Addo. They are saying that Bawumia is responsible for the collapse of the currency. And if you know the role that the currency plays in economic management, you see that it is at the heart of many of our problems. The mismanagement that went on.
Okay.
They said that he did it. So if your own party hold you accountable for the destruction of the Ghanaian economy that we witnessed, what do you expect the general public to perceive of you? So his biggest problem really is not these primaries. I believe that he will win. What remains to be seen is a margin of victory. But as for the general elections, today is what, 24th October. For as long as this economy continues on the trajectory that Dr. Ofosu, under the able leadership of President Mahama, are taking it, Bawumia will struggle to convince Ghanaians otherwise.
All right, so Dr. Seth sends a message. Says, if support from Dr. Seth from Accra, right? If support from our MPs are inconsequential, let us wait for the declaration by 2024 parliamentary candidates. The block of MPs.
You see the
block
point
of MPs.
Moro, I'm saying that. I said that it is immaterial the scheme of things. Yes.
So if the support from MPs are inconsequential, let us wait for the declaration by 2024 parliamentary candidates. The block of MPs and PCs have a huge support base. Felix should be honest with the truth. And the dollar was not 17 cedis when MP left office in January. It was 14.
Moro, listen. Listen.
Was leaving power.
When you talk about the exchange, when you talk about the exchange rate, you see the Bank of Ghana, all they do is to average the rates you pay in various banks. So they call it the interbank rate. But that is not only in banks that people trade in foreign currency. People go to forex bureaus. In fact, I would discount Abuchi because they are illegal. So I would discount that. But the Bank of Ghana gives licenses to forex bureaus to operate. So they sell. When you go there, it was 17, it is legitimate.
As at when?
As at December 2024. I know that because I did the transaction.
Oh.
Yes.
So Gaiji.
So I don't know why they deny what is obvious.
Okay. So Gaiji.
I'm not PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.